Is this better? Can everybody hear me better? All right, wonderful. Thank you. Can everybody see the screen? Am I in anybody's way? Can everybody hear me? Okay, sweet. So first, let's start off with basically the question I've been asked for the past 2 weeks the most. Like, if I have a dime for it, I would quit my job. Mind your language. What does it mean? Before everything, just want to make it clear, it's not a magic trick. There's nothing in there that people can't understand. It's very simple, very apparent. The point of this workshop is to shine a light on something which is innate to all humanity, which is innate to Sunnis, Shias, Christians, Muslims, men, women, everybody. And so, without further ado, I just want to ask you guys, what do you guys think mind your language means? What were you guys expecting when you guys saw this?
Being cognizant of every word, understand the weight of it.
Thought process? Okay, wonderful. I'm sorry? Caution while using words? Absolutely, absolutely. What else? Anybody from ladies' side? What did you guys think when you guys saw this title? The TV show, one of my old favorites. Right? Yeah. So we see there's like all these different opinions and thoughts about three simple words, right? The issue becomes like, why is there this difference in opinion, right? We all are on the same page about many things, right? So why is there a difference in opinion? When we all understand mind, we all understand language, we have a basic understanding, we all speak the same language, right? The grammar wasn't too hard in making that phrase either. So why the difference in opinion? There are two things that it can be boiled down to. Number one being understanding. Our understanding of the subject material can be different. For example, the word mind. Some may think it means mind as in the brain, the organ. Another may think, oh, do you mind? As in using the phrase in that respect. It could be a difference in understanding. Another thing it could be is a difference in judgment or conclusion. So let me give an example of that just to kind of think. If I was to say that this is Friday, will you guys agree or disagree? What is Friday? So this is Friday. Agree or disagree? And yeah, if disagree, it's fine. Disagree or agree? Agree? Okay. What if I was to say this is daytime? Islamically not, right? That's true, exactly. The Saturday has actually begun. Yes, it is. After Maghrib. And what if I was to say this is daytime? Anybody agree with that? Yes or no? Somewhat? Somewhere? Exactly. So we're forming these different conclusions based off of, and judgment about the words I say, based off of what our knowledge is, what our bias is. If you didn't know that the Earth rotated and there was day somewhere else, you may say, no, this is definitely not day anywhere, Haroon. Get the hell out of here, right? This is definitely nighttime. Similarly, so we form our judgments and conclusions about things that are said based upon our experiences, our biases, right? That's where language comes into play. So let's take a closer look. What does this word mean? Water? What else? Anybody? Sport? Grouping together? Pool table, that's right. Anybody? Collective, right? Okay. What about this one? Sport, that's right. This is a Desi community here. We all know squash is a sport, right? Sabzi, that's right. Vegetable. Sorry? Suppressed, right? Something squashed, right? What about this one? Masala. We are definitely in a Desi house right now. Like, we don't even think about summer, winter. No, the first thing is the masala. That's what's up. More power to you. Exactly. Right? So all of these words have different meanings, right? And we drive our conclusions based upon what our experiences are. What is this? The world, the globe, right? Anybody else? A ball? It could be a ball, absolutely. Does this sentence accurately describe what you're saying? The earth is round. No, why not? It's a sphere. What else? It could be flat, right? Okay. When we say that earth is round, does everybody think of that the earth, we're saying that the earth is a circle? It's a sphere, right? So we don't really think that. So we have an understanding that when the word round is applied to earth, we're not talking about a circle. We kind of have that understanding already, right? Where is that coming from? So we saw all these different opinions about between vegetables and seasonings and pools and swimming and sports. Or there are all these misunderstandings that on a smaller scale they're hilarious, right? On a larger scale, we see these same misunderstandings lead to, prejudices, stereotypes, war, right, oppression, things like that. Many of the times, we can be manipulated easily by the use of language, right? We can be manipulated easily by using through the use of language, and yeah. So what can we do to eliminate these misunderstandings, to minimize the disagreements, and really understand the reality of the situation as it stands? What can we do? If the language that we're saying is what's causing these things, what's causing misunderstandings and everything, what can we do? It's very simple, right? We say what we mean, and we mean what we say. Does that seem like a pretty plausible explanation to do so, right? If we just would do that, things won't be so hard, right? We talk about whether it's misunderstandings in households, people can speak the same language, grow up together, understand each other very well, the same dialect and everything, and still there are misunderstandings between them because of language, right? So saying what we mean and meaning what we say sounds simple, but is it? What is this? A butterfly, right? Well, we want to make sure when we're trying to dispel misunderstandings that we don't confuse a butterfly with butterflies. Come on, come on. Get it? Get it? Get it? Okay. Because that's nasty. You don't want to eat that butter, okay? And basically, it's these misunderstandings. This is just a very simple explanation of that, right? That can lead to, say that you're late for work. If the perception of your boss is that, oh, without any explanation would be, oh, this guy's lazy. But if you were to explain to him, hey, I had a flat tire or whatever else, that perception will be gone and it will lead to a good atmosphere. He may even feel sorry for you, right? So those are some things that, on a smaller scale, in your individual lives, that can be applied. So laying that foundation, putting it all together, and everything is all fine and well. But let's take a step back, okay? So let's set up the premise here, what we're talking about, what are we going over. What we're trying to do is that, number one, we want to make sure that this is that we have a good time today. Okay, number one. We want to make sure that I want people to participate, I want people to chime in and all that stuff, like you guys were already doing, which is wonderful. The point of it is that with a community like this, with good participation and having fun with each other, we can learn something, we can grow, and we can see where things take us. Okay? We live in a world of many different nations, ideologies, creeds, and everything. Also live in a world with many different languages, specifically, right? Different languages, different dialects, different ways of speaking in the same household even. So, I ask you guys a simple question. Is language a tool for communication? Yes? That sounds like a resounding yes. Is that the only tool? Are there any others? Gestures, signs, oh, that guy looking at the phone, right? That's all. Morse code. I'm sorry? Non-verbal, right? Body language, right? Body language says a lot. I see somebody on the phone, it's like, oh, they might be speaking, but from their body language, oh, I can tell. I'm not doing a good job. Ah, dang it. Okay. What else? My favorite, personally, and if you ever had a text conversation with me, you know this is my favorite. Emoticons, right? And yeah, this guy's laughing because he knows how I spammed them. But yeah, so body language and so we know that there are other tools, right? What else can language do besides communication? Does it have any other purpose? I'm sorry? Overcoming barriers, absolutely. Insight. Okay, good, good. Overcoming barriers. Insight. We're getting there. We're getting there. Ah, there we go. Something very interesting. Organizing your thoughts, right? Did you look at this before? I don't think so. So, the issue is that one thing is that language we use to communicate. The other thing is this, yes, language we use to organize our thoughts. It governs our thought process. If you don't have a word for something, can we think about it? How does it work? Okay, let's take a simple example, right? We want to build Al-Qadir. What do we need? We need the raw materials. We need the product design. Alums, we need a bunch of alums, okay. Right, production process, we need craftsmen to put these things together and have the knowledge to put these things together. And most importantly, what binds everything together are these laws of science, right? We're talking about gravity, we're talking about the hardness and softness of materials, like cement, wood, everything. Without the craftsmen having the proper knowledge of these laws of science, they will not be able to put together a reliable structure. Does that make sense, right? Pretty well understood. Similarly, when it comes to building an argument, we have our raw materials, which are our words. We have our statements, which are the design. We have our grammar, that is a production process. The communicator is the craftsman. How can they put it together? How can they put together a valid argument? By using the laws of logic. Okay. Just like the laws of science that govern the physical world and the materials. If somebody does not have proper understanding of the laws of logic, will they be able to put together a reliable argument? You can tweet like the president. That's a great example. When we look at a few tweets of the president, what do we think about his understanding of the laws of logic? Does it even exist, right? That's one. Right. So, similarly, yeah, a reliable argument can't be made that defies the laws of logic. So what is logic, right? Just put the word out there for the first time, from language to logic. What the heck is it? Right? Is it 2 + 2 = 4? It's one form of it, arithmetic logic, right? It's easy to understand, easy to apply, but it goes a little bit beyond that. Just like we talked about the laws of science being evident, like we know gravity. Even if we did not know what it meant, it was still evident to us that if I jump up, I'm gonna fall. Similarly, the laws of logic are also self-evident. They are universal. They apply through all languages, all cultures. When we talk about different prophets who came to different nations, when we talk about different philosophers that arise from different parts of the world, we talk about politicians that give speeches, and we look at their speeches and read them. We see how they are able to move the masses, how they're able to influence so many. It all comes down to the language they're using. They might be speaking in Urdu, Farsi, German, Japanese, English, whatever, but the arguments that they will be using, the way they will structure their language is such that it will follow the laws of logic. And that's why logic is the language of the intellect. By understanding those rules, we can, like as the brother said, we can organize our thoughts by using that law. So, what is the role of logic? What do we see over here? Is this pencil bent? No? Okay, let's see. You're saying it's not bent, but you see it, right? Does it look bent to you? Then why are you saying it's not bent? You understand the laws of attraction and optics? Refraction and optics? Absolutely. Even if you were not to understand. See, who's the youngest person here? Come on. Okay. Is this pencil bent? Why are you saying that? I'm not picking on you. You know it's not bent, right? But you're looking at it. But it's not. So, do you have an understanding of the laws of refraction and optics? Maybe, might, but point of it being, it's the reason why you can differentiate between what you see, what your sensory perception is, and what your rational mind thinks is because the logic protects your mind from falling into that error. Okay. It is your rational mind making those deductions automatically without you even thinking about it. Do you guys believe in dinosaurs? Yeah? Were you alive when they were there? Have you seen them? Like a real dinosaur, not in Jurassic Park? Then why do you believe in it? We have some remains, right? We have some fossils. We found a bone here, we found a bone there. We were able to put them together. Did we ever find a full dinosaur? No. But we used what we had, and we were able to derive what we did not know. Logic helps us do that. It helps us go from what we know towards what we do not know. Okay. Third thing we talk about a lot, there's somewhat of a debate between, oh, the science, and its empirical theory. You know, something must be proven and everything. But let's talk about physical laws, for example. We know that water boils. If you were to heat up water, at a certain point, it's going to boil. Right? Have you boiled every pot of water you've seen? But you know it's going to boil, right? Why is that? Does everybody here have a heart? Yes? Have you guys ever seen a heart like in anybody else? Well, if they're sitting with you, then probably not, right? But the thing is, but we know that. Why? Because at the end of it, logic is what underlies all scientific laws. The reason why we are able to apply the observation that water boils to every water we see anywhere is because we are rational creatures. We use our rational mind to do so. Is it only limited to these physical realities? No? What about the metaphysical? Can it be applied over there? Yeah? If the word for something does not exist, does that mean that thing does not exist? If you don't have a word for something. Most of the time when we talk about metaphysical realities, for many people, and for thousands, hundreds and thousands of years, we didn't even have words for those realities, right? But we had understanding as humanity. So, now, we've established that if there's, just because there isn't a word for something, doesn't mean it does not exist. But we also know if something is real, then there must be a way to prove it, to realize it. Right? If something does not have a word and something is not real, and there's no way to prove it, then we can actually say, it may not even exist, right? Unicorns, perfect example. Like unicorns, right? They might prove it. So, what we see is that it's these universal laws that discover metaphysical realities, and these universal laws that we can use to do so, to delve into the unknown, like we saw before. The unknown of the metaphysical is the intellect. It's no sensory perception that's coming at us, right? We don't see the pencil either being bent or not. There's no sensory perception. The only thing we have is the rational mind, the intellect, to delve into the metaphysical. So let's take a step back. Is everybody with me? Yes? There's just 2 yeses. Man, I've lost everybody here. Yes? Okay, good. So let's look at this phrase over here. Would you agree? A positive life and a negative mind cannot coexist peacefully. Yeah? What does that say? One thing, definitely, I guess, there's a relationship between a positive life and a mindset, right? What is a positive life to you guys? Tell me. Give me some examples. Come on, you guys. I said this is going to be fun. Huh? A world without war, absolutely. Anybody else? I'm sorry? A healthy lifestyle, right? A positive, healthy lifestyle. And then you'll have your own definitions of healthy and positive. Absolutely. Anybody else? Coexisting with others, right? Coexisting peacefully with others. Right? So, in order to achieve coexistence of living with others, in order to achieve a healthy lifestyle, will we be able to do so if we have a negative mindset about others or about health or any of those issues? Yes or no? Will we be able to get those two together? No, right? So the question becomes really, how can logic help us create that positive mind that the life can then follow, that our actions can follow? So there are many different ways that we use logic and it can influence us. And this is a long list. Helping in achieving certainty in belief. And this is an exercise I saw very recently by some of the people who already know. If I was to say, let's see here, Kumber, I'm going to pick on you, okay? If I was to say the color of the font is red, will you agree? Dang it. Okay, somebody else who's not colorblind in this room. Is everybody colorblind in this room? Oh, yeah, Avadi. Is the font red? I'm saying it's red. You would disagree? Okay. I'll give you like 10. I'll give you like $10. You gotta say it's red. Is that okay? Okay. This font is red, right? No, dang it. Nobody on it. Snakes everywhere, man. Dang. Okay. Ursel, come on. I'll give you $20. Huh? 30. I'll go with 30. Okay. This is red, right? It's red. We have two people saying it's red, man. You still gonna disagree? Yeah. Are you still? The 30's not splitting, guys. Are you gonna disagree? You will still disagree, right? If the whole world was telling you that it's red, would you still disagree? Yeah. Why is that? Because you have certainty in belief, right? You have yaqeen. Do we have the same certainty in our religious beliefs, in our worldview, in our ideology, and everything within it? Yes? Perfect. So that's something that logic helps us do. It governs the intellect and our ability to think. Right? Helps in formation of a correct worldview, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Enables effective communication. I see a lot of young people over here. See anybody who's almost going to be a parent, except for me. That's what's up. Thank you, thank you. I take your congratulations very humbly. So we know that when it comes to communicating with a child or teaching about religion and everything, those questions rise up. It's very important to communicate effectively, right? To get to the point and to explain things in a way that even a child would understand. Helps in acknowledging reality as it is, right? Removing personal biases and prejudices. That's something that we can all learn from and share as we live in a world which is filled with stereotypes about others, whether it's races, political nations, and everything. It also improves our analytical and reasoning skills. How many of us are planning on going into a good professional job market, right? That's where it's going to come in handy. Conflict management, whether it's at home, in our communities, in our life, and the people who surround us. And mass management of public opinion. which is something we see in the news media a lot, how they use logic or lack thereof, how they use language to tell people whether or not there are WMDs in Iraq, whether or not we should invade this country or that country. There's a whole process and a whole machine that goes behind getting public opinion on one side. If we are to understand logic, if we are to understand and develop our own mode of thinking in a rational way, we'll be able to see through those realities. We'll be able to see reality and not get distracted by all of that crap that comes at us. So let's take a step back. Okay, let's do a little application fun here, okay? Let's apply logic to form a worldview. What is a worldview, actually? I'm sorry? A worldwide view, what does it mean? Perspective. Perspective on the world, right? Perspective how the world works, what are its mechanisms, what is important, what is not important, all those things. So, first question first, why do we need a worldview? What's the importance of it? It prevents a lot of conflict. Yeah, that's interesting. Can it also cause conflict if my worldview differs from yours? What else? What does worldview lead to? Say you have a worldview, let's take an example. Say you have a worldview of pessimism. Will that lead to a pessimistic ideology, for instance? Right? Ideology leads to behavior, behavior to action. Say, for example, let's do this exercise a little bit backwards. And this is, can you guys move up? There's like people in the back who are trying to come in. Come on. Come on, move up, move up, move up, move up. Come on, you guys. So, behavior leads to action, right? So let me give an example, and I'm using this as an example. I want to make sure, this is a disclaimer, I'm not picking on anybody, okay? Everybody's entitled to their own actions and everything. Say, let's take this example for a minute. A person does not attend the Al-Quds rally at the end of Ramadan. What can we derive about their behavior from this action?
They're working.
They might be working, absolutely. They might have work. What else? They may not be supportive of it, right? These behaviors, they may not think it affects. Those are all some signs of behavior. What does that say about their, well, let's take a step back. What is about behavior? It would be kind of like, they may be apathetic, they may have work preferences in others. What does it say about their ideology? That it may not be ideologically inclined towards standing up for Palestine, right? That's one thing. When you take it a step back, what does that say about their worldview? How they view the world? I'm sorry? Limited. Right. Diplomatic. Interesting. Interesting way of putting it. What else? So, the point of the exercise wasn't that this person is diplomatic or this person is limited, but the point of the exercise is to really understand how these actions are a reflection of our worldview. Whenever we take an action, we should reflect back on what does this action is congruent? Is this action congruent with my worldview? Does this action align with how I believe the world works? What my ideology is, right? If we are able to do that, we can move forward in taking good actions. So, let's talk about forming the worldview in itself. Okay, this is going to be a one-by-one thing. I want you guys to participate, okay? Come on. Simple, easy questions. Is this world real or not? Raise your hand. You tell me if you whatever you want to go with, it's your answer. Yeah. Did you raise your? It's real. Okay. Somebody else. Why is it real? I'm gonna start picking. Okay, Zisha. Because what you do matters. Dream is. So why does it? Okay. So you're saying because what you do matters, right?
It's not real because what you do follows a specific logic set by, let's say, a program. And thus, what you do doesn't matter because it's just.
I gotta unplug you at this point. You know too much. Okay. So let's go back to what you said. Because what you do matters, right? Mujtaba, why does it matter what you do?
Well, the consequences to what you do. Everything has mukafat amal, everything has cause and effect.
Hmm.
Right? That's pretty much it.
Okay. It matters what you do because you have an effect on something. Is that what you're saying? Is that why it matters?
I mean, like I said, everything has a cause and effect. So if you do something, there's going to be, if there's a, there's an attack, there's a counterattack. If there's a reaction, there's a counter-reaction. So anything you do, there's something that's there to counter that, or there's something that comes
Okay.
into place once you do something.
So,
Anything you do, it matters because it'll put into effect something else.
Ahsan. Okay. So we see just from this small 3-question exercise, we know that Mujtaba's worldview is that it's a world in which your actions have a reaction, right?
Somebody's worldview could be that the question is false.
Okay.
Maybe the question should state how real is the world?
How real is the world? Ahsan. How real is the world?
Our understanding of it is much, it's, to us it's real because of our sensory perception of it, but after we die and the veil is removed, then we realize what reality were.
Okay. So it's very limited to what the... So. Ali Bhagat in the back. Why is that? Yeah. What is real? Anybody? Any takers here? What is real?
What is the world?
What is the world, right? What is what? What is what? Okay.
What is?
Hassan, right? So the point of the exercise was that by asking the question why behind each answer, we can get to the formation of a worldview. Is everybody on the same page about that, or should we do another exercise? We're good? Yeah? I'll take it as we're good. So, one thing we have to keep in mind, worldview is not a static thing, it's dynamic. It changes with your perception, it changes as you grow, it changes as you have more experiences, right? Is a worldview of you yourself as a child the same as your worldview today? Hopefully not. I mean, unless you're living like a child, in that case, man, that's a dream come true, right? Exactly. But yeah, so it's a dynamic thing. It changes and improves and even can get distorted. All of that comes down to how you grew up, what were your experiences, right? It's very simple. Garbage in, garbage out. If our time is spent taking in garbage, our worldview will become distorted to reflect that garbage. If our time is spent taking in treasures, our worldview will be a treasured worldview. So, how many people did I lose? All of us, that's right. Wonderful. That was exactly the point, because let's get into the details, the nitty-gritty, right? With our subject matter expert, right? Because I'm just here to raise questions. He's the one who has the answers, right? So please, with a loud salawat, can I have Mawlana Shamshad Haider? Yeah.
A little complicated. Can you give an example of a meaning that you understand but you cannot show? A concept, something that you understand what it is, but you cannot really show, present. Allah. We start with Allah, mashallah. What will happen after that? Anything else? Yeah, mashallah. Okay. Ruh. You mean like one specific ruh or like idea of? Okay. Freedom. Haha. Dream. Love. Yes. So does an animal love his master? Like you tame an animal or domesticate it. That's also a sense of love, yeah. So these are ideas, you know, you understand them very well, like justice, you know, shaja'a, different other things. Iman, for instance, iman, we know what it is, but we cannot show it. So our awareness of this world is more than the animals. They're also aware of their surroundings. They sense, they imagine also, but they don't understand these subtle ideas, right? Why is that so? So what is about intellect? There's this yeah. Aql. What is aql? Could be that, yeah, one function of aql is that. Anything else? Khair and shar, you know. That's khair and shar. Any other function of aql? Intellect, right? What is the function of intellect? Understand, generally, yeah. I mean, logic is one of those things we can understand. Make sense of surroundings, yeah. So, what is and is not also a job of the aql, to understand what is and what is, like real and unreal. So, idea of what is real, that was a valid question, like what is real? You know, what is haqq, for instance? In Arabic, says real means haqq. What is haqq? So if you ask CNN, haqq means the winner probably. That's haqq. And or haqq is probably something that's profitable. That's right. Because if the idea sells, then it is haqq, it's the right idea. If it doesn't sell, doesn't make money, this idea, even in the short run, if it doesn't make money, it's a fake idea. But it makes money or it becomes popular, that would be a real idea, they say, the way they present it at least. If a lot of it gets a lot of followers, you know, a lot of subscribers, then it's a real idea. Do you agree with these? Which one of these do you agree with? Real means what? Any other definition of what is real? What is haqq? See, these ideas that come in our mind, we are so aware of our world around us to the level that we can have these abstract thoughts in our mind that we can't even show. We can't draw them. We cannot build a sculpture of them. But we can define them logically. Can anyone define justice, for example? You cannot expect a cow to define justice, but we can make an effort, right? Anyone?
Giving things their due right.
Or like, in other words, yeah, putting things where they belong, right? Putting everything, giving everything its rightful place. So, see, ideas which cannot be shown can be defined, can be understood, can be passed on to other people through the correct use of language. And as Harun mentioned, that language is not only for communication, language is also the tool by which you actually think. That's why a big part of logic is about language, right? So, Iman, for instance, let's say, what is Iman? Iman, can anyone tell me what Iman is? Faith. So, faith in something, right? So that something should be something known. It can't be something unknown. Can you have faith in some unknown thing? I have faith. Huh? You can? For example, like faith in the unknown itself. The meaning of the word unknown, I mean. Yeah, because we don't. So the unknownness of that thing can diminish or can increase. Like how much you have faith. A 2-year, I can't say 5-year-old, right, uh, has faith in God because of the simple reasoning he or she has acquired from mom or dad. For example, God exists. God is there. Why do you think a 5 or 7-year-old would think why God exists? For example, what reasoning would you expect from a 6-year-old, 5-year-old? Huh? Mom said so. What about 7-year-old, 8-year-old? What would you expect? Why God is there? Uh-huh.
I think like when you have faith as a child, you might not have reasons for them, but it's the same when you get an adult. You have rationalizations, but not reasoning why you believe what you believe. Because belief in itself is a lack of evidence in something. So if you believe in something, you have to take a leap of faith, and you might not have all the reasons that you need for it, but you could make rationalizations because that's how humans function.
So can you say, for example, the people had faith because they don't know this universe enough. Once they got to know this universe better, were able to explain things, then God, that was the end of God. Is that like you have to have a blind faith? Faith is blind. Is that what your faith is? Faith is blind.
It's a certain percent.
Huh?
Right? Like there's a part that you say you know for sure,
Mhm.
but then let's say 10%, 5% in your heart, you're like, there is a possibility that this all could be whatever. So there is a aspect of blind faith to say like, look, I believe my prayers are going to lead towards me getting blessings in the afterlife. I believe that there exists an afterlife. However, can I say 100, 200% yes? Maybe something.
We are confronted with these questions at every step of our way, as long as we are alive. And any step of the way where we are confused enough that we cannot explain it anywhere, we are at the place where we can lose everything very easily.
I kind of agree with some of the aspect of what I was
Mhm.
saying that sometimes faith is unknown, but the fact that we call it faith when it's unknown for us, I feel like that's wrong because there was this one dua, the famous dua, the Allahumma arifni nafsak, that one. It's basically saying that God, let me know you, and if I don't know you, I won't be able to know your prophet. And it goes on, it says, if I don't know myself, it reaches yourself. It says, Dalaltu an dini. It says, you are deluded from your religion. So if you're deluded from your religion because you don't know about God, prophets, imams, then how do you still have faith in them? Like, I feel like faith is something that you have to have knowledge about to be able. I don't believe in trying.
Yeah, so there should be something that you have faith in. I'm trying to something. You may not know what it is really in the real sense. For example, the idea of God. I mean, you can try to present this idea so that only applies to God and not to human beings. The idea of God. But if someone says God means Jesus, then it's a different understanding of this word God. But if you define God as something that cannot be physically shown or seen at all, but then see what God really would be. So Iman, faith is an attachment to something. But it's a faith in something known, not something unknown. Overall, do we agree with that? You don't have to. Do you still? I think there are a lot of us who think that we may have faith in something that we don't properly know, but we have some sense of it. So, what if we knew more? What is it that would make us know that thing so that we can have better faith in that thing? Because faith in something known. So, how can we have a higher degree of faith, like this Dua Makarim that we read in this month? Balligh bi imani akmal al iman. Take my iman to a more complete level of iman. Waj'al yaqini afdal al yaqeen. So yaqeen we thought was the ultimate thing, but it says make my yaqeen to a better state of yaqeen, and make my niyat to a better level of niyat, and my action to a better state of action. So what would make my iman in what I have iman in a better iman?
Like for example, have the right worldview or perspective of these world,
Hmm.
you can sit there and see like, okay, the world is created, it follows a specific course, seasons, it has a specific laws that it's governed by. This can only be through the means of creation by a beneficent, merciful, and knowledgeable like God. So you can kind of take observation of the world around you and use that to strengthen your faith. Or an esoteric thing, you can feel a closeness to God as your laws or something like that.
Are you my colleague? Yes. We can be together teaching this stuff. Yeah.
Your question was how to strengthen your iman, right?
Yeah, like Iman in something that you know some little bit about. How can you have a better Iman?
So I remember I read somewhere about this sort of triangle in Islam. The corners of the triangle are like iman, amal, and ilm. So like iman, action, and knowledge. And it says that if any of them is cut away, then the other two will suffer. And like it's sort of like it's a cycle that if you have iman in something, you'll have action, you'll commit the action, and then you'll gain knowledge. Or if you have knowledge in something, you'll gain faith in it and you'll commit the action. Or if you do an action, you'll start gaining knowledge and you'll get the iman. So like it's a sort of a cycle. If you lose one of them, the other two can suffer. Something like that.
Actually, so knowledge is another part and action is another part, right? So action can strengthen Iman just as knowledge can strengthen our Iman, right? But Iman itself could be an attachment to an idol, to a person, to anything. So what you know about that thing, how much you know about that thing will define what kind of Iman you have, right? If let's say you just follow something, Iman, get attached to something, let's take the right example. Like a child, the same child who learned this from his or her mom, that God exists because you see, everything needs a creator, So all this, this watch needs a creator. Somebody made this watch, right? So this universe, beautiful universe, also needs a creator, right? I'm just almost finishing. Like you point examples, okay, this needs a creator, this needs a manufacturer, this table needs somebody designed it, manufactured it. Okay, how could a universe of this size and myself in it be there by itself? And this argument may appeal to what age group? I'm just guessing, wondering what age group would buy into this argument, would accept this argument. The children like 9 years old, 10 years old, right? And the same student gets to high school and somebody asks him, you're a Muslim, whatever, you believe in God, what makes you think there is a God? And he gives this idea, this argument. Well, you see, all these things we use, they've been created, right? So how this universe could be there without a creator? And this person says in response, well, the manufacturer or the printer of this book is probably dead. The one who made this watch is dead long ago. Nobody even knows where he is. People, all these examples you're giving, it does show somebody created it, but it doesn't prove he's still there. So maybe there was some creator who's passed away a long time ago. It doesn't prove that he's alive or he's still there. And there, this whole reasoning, this breaks down, which means the faith also dissolves with it. Right? This faith was standing on some knowledge. And thus that knowledge was standing on some reasoning. The reasoning was proven wrong. The thought process was all messed up. So the faith that resulted from this knowledge was also lost. And here is a person from a family which goes back 20 generations of believers suddenly finds himself nowhere. Thinking, what was that? Really? Now it depends on the person who, if he has the initiative to go around, start homework on this topic again to figure out what was it, what's the real reason, or maybe he just lost. Becomes like an atheist, which is quite possible. I'll just finish with one hadith. It says, إِذَا فَكَّرْتَ عَرَفْتَ. When you think, you understand. And when you understand, you have faith. And when you have faith, your actions will improve. Right? So that means faith has to be in something you know. And in order for you to have a stronger faith, you have to know it really well. And how do you know something really well? If you think really well, and if you think correctly, they must have some rules for thinking. Otherwise, it's basically a mess. It's a chaos. If there are no rules governing our thinking, that means our mind is something totally unknown what it is. And while the rest of the natural world has laws that govern all the natural processes, and our mind is this one exception which does not want to follow any rules, then I would say that would discredit all sciences. See, Imam Ghazali spent his whole life discrediting philosophy. He was perhaps the person who launched the biggest tirade and attack on Avicenna. And Avicenna spent his whole life establishing philosophy. So this one word philosophy draws two people from two big minds, from two different angles, one for and one totally against. And so what is the meaning of philosophy? See how not understanding a concept and not getting a good reasoning to understand some idea, can really cause so much chaos in this world, so much conflict in this world. So just some thoughts I wanted to share with you. Took a lot of your time. Thank you.
So actually, as it turns out, I also spot so this was, Agha Shamshad Haider, who's been going over this subject for years and as a subject matter expert and everything. We also have our practitioner and current student of this subject matter in the crowd, way in the back over there that I see. Agha Amin, can you please come up and say a few words as well? Loud salawat, please.
This is a complicated thing. I need to. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي امري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من اهلي اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. I think the conversation has been going on for a long time, and I don't know if you guys really want to hear me, but I just wanted to say one thing. I want every one of y'all to actually stand up and switch places with the person right next to you. No, switch places. I don't want you all to sit in the same places. Just switch places with the person right next to you. That's it. Now, a question is, was that allowed to ask? Did you guys feel any awkwardness? Did any one of y'all didn't want to do that? Please show by raise of hands. Y'all wanted to move? Yes, no? No? Okay, let's go with the no. Why didn't you all want to move? You're comfortable, exactly. And why did you want to move? You wanted to be more comfortable. It was a good opportunity to move. So it is the state of mind that we actually live in. One state of mind actually says, okay, I am comfortable in the position that I am. Like I was very comfortable sitting in the back, looking at everyone, nice dim lights, nice blue, red color, whatever it's over there. And I was perfectly fine with it, but I was made uncomfortable. And I was told to come and stand over here. Now, this is the month of Ramadan. What was the first verse that was revealed? Iqra. What does it mean to read? Does it mean to comprehend or does it mean to read? Asqara, ikra. Just read. It's simple. It's not a tricky question. It just means read. Now, how many of y'all are, do you enjoy reading Quran? Well, do you enjoy it or you're forced to read it or you just want to do it just for the sake of it? There are no wrong answers, guys. You fall asleep? Okay. Any other comments, thoughts? It goes up with you. What else? Is it? And you don't understand anything, just read it just for the sake. The Arabic part or the English part? The English part. But the Arabic part. Any other comments, thoughts? No? Come on, guys. I know y'all want to say something. Otherwise, you can all stare at each other, just me standing here and looking. It is a pretty cool language, right? And it's a hard one, right? It's really hard. Now, my question is, do you think just reading the Quran, just for the sake of just reading, does it actually have an effect? Yes, no? Okay. Okay, by show of hands, how many of y'all think that it actually has an effect? Okay. How many of y'all think it does not have an effect? Okay. Why doesn't it have an effect?
Because you don't understand it without the context, and then you can apply it to your own life. If somebody just randomly says something in another language and you won't react, for instance, if you don't know Urdu and I speak something in Urdu and then you'll say, alright, what's this guy? Is he praising me or is he like?
Are we still on the don't or are we on the do now?
We're in the dome. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I see Muhammad had raised his hand. Or maybe he doesn't want to answer. Okay, I can understand. I'll get you afterwards. But the reason I asked this, and one of the verses, the first verse was Iqra, read. And I've actually had the opportunity to actually, research on this topic for a long time. I'm a storyteller. I like to tell stories, I guess. Not a good one, but you have to bear with me. So there was an old man. He's constantly reading Quran all the time. His son looks at him. He's like, Dad, you're constantly reading this Quran. You do not understand a single word of what you're reading. You just keep on reading and reading and reading. He's like, yeah. He's like, why don't you just, read a translation, actually understand what you're reading? He's like, have you all seen those baskets, that, in the villages, people used to carry coals and, if you actually put water in it, it would just drain out. So he had this basket full of coal. He tells his son, just throw the coal out and go fetch water. His son looks at him. He's like, are you stupid? He's like, just go do it. He takes the basket, goes, fills it with water, and brings it back. He's like, now what? He's like, nothing. A few days later, same thing. He's like, why don't you do this? He decides. He's like, okay, I'll just do it, just for the sake of doing it. And a third time, then he just flips out. He's like, Dad, what's going on? You're telling me to take this basket and just go fetch water. By the time I come back, it's all empty. He's like, look at the basket. It's clean. He's like, do you find any traces of coal in it? Like, no. He's like, what happened? He's like, when I went and fetched the water, it, cleaned out all the dust and the debris. He's like, this is exactly what it is. When we're reading Quran, we're actually just reading, even though it does not make sense. I know it does not make sense to a lot of people. To me, it does not make sense to me. But at the same time, you read, and it actually cleans the heart. Now, going back to the exercise we just did, when I told you all to actually stand up. You know, this everything we've been talking about is logic and words and everything. The purpose was to get you all to actually just make an action, just to think about what's going on. The Quran says, first verse, read. You think and you ponder. Now, a lot of times people, I've sat with intellectuals and I'm a nobody. But a lot of times people come out and like, well, this verse says this verse says this. Look at the translation, look at this, look at these, look at the commentaries that are written and everything. Now what do? You're like, is that word of God? Let me ask you that. The translation, is it a word of God? Are you reading the word of God? Exactly. You've watched the movie, haven't you? Lost in Translation. Okay, it's okay. It's what? It's limited. It just gives you an understanding. Now, we talked about logic and everything over here. I mean, even though I was on a completely different page when I came in here. But I just wanted to say one thing. This is what happens. You know, we read stuff, we understand, we ponder, but we do not have the tool to understand it. Like in a language, we have words, we have grammar. Do words and grammar actually teach you how to talk? What do? They're tools. And that's exactly what logic is. You have logical fallacies, you know, that actually is being used. You use it, you know, every day. Like one of the examples I really liked, you know, about the water, I just had a different spin on it. I mean, water boils 100 degrees. Has anybody tested all the water that is out there? They just did a sample and they just decided, hey, we tested a certain amount to reach a conclusion that, hey, if all the water in the world was to be boiled at 100 degrees, I mean, all the water, if it was, you know, they would boil it at 100 degrees and evaporate or whatever. I'm not a science person. But that's the key. You just take a sample, you arrive at a conclusion, and you just go with it. Take the information, ponder over it, think over it, read. I went to UT. How many are Hook 'em Horns fans over here? Do you have any UT people here? Yeah, hell yeah, Hook 'em Horns. When I used to walk every day, you know, UT has a slogan, what starts here changes the world. And on the tower, they have this, you know, thing from the Bible that says, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. I constantly used to see it. It did not make sense to me. You know, every time I used to walk by it, we used to spend our time near the main mall. But it didn't make sense. Until later on in life, I realized that, you know, one of the things that helped me out, I used to read. I mean, it could be fiction for all that matter. But you know what? Get in the habit of reading. Once you start to read, you think. And once you start to think, you ponder. And how do you help yourself? And how do you not fall a victim of what's going on out there with the words and everything? It's logic. Peace beside us, salawat.
Well, thank you so much. Let me see. Okay, sweet, it's working. Okay. Thank you so much, Alan. Okay. So, a couple of things here. Moving back. There are two things. One, give me a moment. Hello, can everybody hear me? Yeah, okay, better. So one thing is that what we did over here, first point is that we talked about and we introduced the subject in a way that that prepared the minds to be receptive to the information that Agha Shamshad and Agha Amin Khoja was going to bring, right? That's one thing, to have their preparation ready. The second part of it is that we understand that this is not a topic that can be dealt with in 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 or 4 hours, right? So what we have planned is a series of study group sessions, which over a span of 6 months, that are 2 hours each, starting the 1st of July. Okay. Last Saturday of every month after the 1st of July, where we will basically sit down beyond just talking about the subject, but impart the knowledge, where Agha Shamshad will impart the knowledge on how to utilize it to see the reality of the world that surrounds us, to make logic a tool in your arsenal to take, whether you're going to work, whether it's in school, whether it's in any aspect of life, in your family, any other affair that's there, right? So without further ado, I would say please sign up. We have the subscription forms here. I would suggest if you can pass these. And I'll ask them. Yeah, I'll get. I got it. Can you pass them? All the pens. And please return the pens when you're done, or just leave them on this table over here. But yeah, so basically, to give us your contact information if you're interested in basically what we talked about today, moving forward from there. I hope everybody's on the same page in terms of how important it is to understand logic, or have enough understanding to craft an argument. Is everybody on the same page over here? Dang, it's like nobody. All right. Yeah.
I just very respectfully disagree with Harun. I'm not going to be the only teacher. We are a team. We had a discussion. Huh?
Try it now.
Ah, good. Uh, we worked as a team, so much of the work, Brother Masjood, please say the salawat for and Harun, obviously, great work, mashallah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So, and the brothers, sisters, all, have to join. We have to bring logic to a level of a middle school student, even an elementary student. Right now, we're starting with your age. If you all get really strong in this, you can boil it down. So we can start from our little kids, You can do that. Right now, the idea is we work as a team, continue to come up with similar presentations, just as interactive, so one step at a time. And I have no plan of lecturing anybody. Salawat.
Right, like the idea is to basically get the community, like get everybody who participates to come on the same page, right? Less lecturing, more understanding, and more thinking things through. Okay. So, with that said, I'm going to give it over to the Q&A. Please, Agha Nabil, Agha Shamshad, please, if you can come on the panel and we can start the Q&A about what we talked about today. Whatever other questions you guys have, I will move around with the mic. So yeah, let's get it started.
I would like to thank all of you for attending this session. Thank you for Harun to put this together. I was kind of, I didn't know what was going on either until just now when I heard the presentation. Thank you for choosing this venue for this wonderful presentation. Thank you, Maulana Shamshad and Brother Amin and Brother Nabil for being here. inshallah, we'll start the Q&A session. We won't take too long, but I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions now. We will maybe start with the ladies. And if you guys have any questions.
So nobody has any questions so far? Like we did a great job. Everybody's on the same page. Like
It doesn't have to be.
Now, using logic, Assalamu alaikum. How can we answer? How can we disprove the theory of what do you say? Creation of universe that is put forth by the physicists. In how do we disprove that?
so, the question is, how can we, or can we disprove the theory of the physicists regarding the creation of the universe or the Earth? Please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I have been thrown in at the deep end because much like all of you, I had absolutely no idea what this was about. Harun decided that he would withhold that information from me. However, now that I am here and enlightened rationally, going to your question, how can we disprove what the physicists say about the creation of the universe? I'm not a physicist, so I'm going to take a shot in the dark, and I think you're talking possibly about the Big Bang Theory. And is that correct? Yes. Okay. So again, when it comes to a lot of this stuff, I have a lot of friends who have physics PhDs and space sciences and all that sort of lovely stuff. And one of the main things that one gets drawn into is this discussion where somehow we're on the back foot when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the creationist idea. The fact of the matter is that the Big Bang Theory is exactly that. It is a theory. It is yet to have any concrete proof as to its existence. How we're going to go about changing it, how we're going to go about... I mean, we have this idea, or we seem to get into these discussions with atheists and people who are adherents to this particular theory. On it's sort of circular. It goes, okay, well then what was before God, and then what was before God? Okay, then if you said there was a God there, then what was before that God? And we sort of go in that circular thing. So that logic has to be countered with a higher form of our logic. When you break down their theory to its core, it always has a starting point. And our argument is that starting point is God. You know, before anything, there was something there. And so I find very often when I get into these discussions is to break it down to that core. Okay, where did it start from? Well, our argument is that start is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be that if he put the Big Bang into, initiated it and it started, or be that what they call, or what they used to call the universal constant is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't know if any of the other panelists want to add something.
I know this has been a very interesting topic we've debated in our classes with Agha Shamshad, and I just want to take it, just add to, with your permission, by the way. I think that's perhaps the most common question about, is this mic working? Probably not. Is it? Yes. Okay, so let's take a logical approach to it, because I think we were discussing logic today. let's assume, like what Nabil just said, that we keep constantly going back that where did I come from? I come from my biological parents, and they come from their biological parents, and so on and so forth. And they came from some chemical reaction which led to a living organism, and that came from certain elements and atoms, which came from a certain, chemical phenomena, which is attributed to a Big Bang or a point of singularity. The question is that point of singularity would have come from somewhere. There are only two possibilities. Either that point of singularity has created itself, or it was created by something other than itself. Let's assume that that point of singularity created itself. Then there are still two possibilities. Either it created itself when it existed, or it created itself when it did not exist. So the first is a contradiction because it cannot create itself when it existed, and it cannot create itself if it did not exist, which is an impossibility. So on one side there's a contradiction, on the other side is an impossibility. So there's only a third option remaining, which is it was created by something other than itself, and that thing will defy any properties which this singularity will possess. If this thing will have a physical body, the thing which created cannot have a physical body. If this thing started at a certain time, the thing which created cannot start at that certain time. If it needs a space, the thing which created it cannot occupy space. And that creates this realm of metaphysics, or metaphysical realm, and we define that in the term Allah, and all what I'm talking about, time and space, Allah defies all that. There's no physical form of it. So even if the Big Bang theory is correct, if it is, still it will contradict itself, because that point of singularity, which is used as a permeable atom, cannot create itself, as we have just discussed, as a matter of logic. So, it's an interesting debate, but now the point is, how did we come to that conclusion? And that's where the logic comes into play. That's where the intellect comes into play. I don't want to supersede what is being said today, but this is what we learn in these classes. So again, those who will be coming in future will benefit from such subjects. But again, this is just my humble opinion on it. Sure.
You want to say? I'm not trying to answer this question at all. What I'm just saying is, one question is presented and then we struggle on the answer, right? Let's say Allah gives the correct answer to the question, and what will you do with the 20,000 other questions? Can you memorize 20,000 answers? The shubhat, the doubts and confusions out there are not 5 or 10 or 50. Otherwise we would have, it would be very easy to deal with these kind of problems. It's like, I'm not a doctor. I pick up a book of medicine, any of the subject related to medical science, and find some answers to some questions listed on there. And I think, for example, why I feel comfortable, good, I know something. And first encounter with any well-read person is going to break me down. Really, I would have nothing to say, because I memorized 3 or 4 answers. Does that help really? No, it doesn't. We want to train you as professionals. Like, people who can deal with it, deal with problems, whatever problems come your way, because you are trained as a professional, trained in logic as a professional. You will have that much confidence in yourself that you will not be worried when you are asked to present something somewhere, right? You will not be digging into 20 books to prepare something, because your mind is structured. Your mind is structured. Everything has a proper place. And that gives you confidence. It's like you removed all the clutter, you reorganize your mind again. What we have right now, where we are right now, there's a clutter. It's like a garage, with all the mess in it. For 20 years, we have been throwing everything in the garage. The same thing about Islam. Something you picked up from some website, some Maulana's speech, something from some channel, or some random article somewhere, or whatever. All this is in the brain. It does not help. Doesn't help. But when you get all of this out, and you develop, fix shelves over there, categorize, classify things, where what belongs, what is the connection of these ideas, these things, articles together, and then you'll be in a position that you will first of all understand where this person is coming from, what is he really saying. Because let's say Big Bang Theory or whatever that may be, it's talking about some sort of origin for this universe, right? Some sort of origin, there was some start. Well, the person can say, what's wrong with not having any origin? What's wrong with not having any origin? A created B, A was created by B, B was created by C, C was created by E, and go on endlessly. What's wrong with that? You know? Yeah. So questions can come from anywhere, and you will cannot even imagine what kind of questions will come up. But once you are trained as a professional, logic, epistemology, right? Basic concepts of philosophy, and then rational basis, the comparison between a materialist worldview and a divine and spiritual worldview. Really, in what areas there is a contrast between these two. And then get into the rational reasoning, without ayat and ahadith, this rational, pure rational ideas. Because you are now a professional, you know how logic works, you can actually see this argument, is it even framed correctly or not? So that's why the emphasis is on start from the foundation. If we don't build our foundation correctly, you'll be trying to memorize different things, different Maulanas or books are telling you, and that won't go very far. You don't even have to ask a question. You can make a comment or any idea. Yes?
No, I can just talk. Maulana Shamshad, when you said there's a right way to think about like things, what did you mean by that? Can you expand on that a little bit?
This brain being part of this natural world, there must be some grammar governing this thought process, some laws governing the thought process. The difference between human beings, as we discussed, and animals is this: the way we think. The way we think. For example, we can define ideas. No other organism in this world can define ideas like justice, generosity, bravery, honesty, other such things. Only human beings can do that. So, but then people disagree over definitions, disagree over terrorism, disagree over human rights, disagree over Islam, disagree on the meaning of the word imam, nubuwwat, even God. I've had an interfaith, we had an event in Dallas, and I was on the panel with some pastors and rabbis and some secular guys on the panel, and the university students were observing us saying all these different things in response to their questions, and one of them stood up and said, well, why don't you guys talk to each other and try to, do you agree on with each other on anything? So, and I hadn't studied logic that much at that point, so something just came to my mind. I said, we agree on God. Those who are representing some sort of Abrahamic tradition, we do agree on God, don't we? And I turned to this pastor next to me. Everyone was quiet. Nobody seemed to agree with me on God. Really, nobody on that panel agreed that we believe in the same God. That was a shock of my life. Wow. So you see, things are not defined the same way. Why? Because we don't know how to define something. What is the definition? What rules govern definition? What kind of definitions there are? What are the components of a definition? How do you know what kind of definition is it? Right? And then arguments. What sort of arguments exist out there? So you see, once these are the rules, so logic is basically grammar of thinking. We spend so much time in our school life studying grammar of language. So much time. How to make this sentence, what kind of sentences there are, and all of these. Well, we don't. What is more important, really? Language or the thoughts? A person may be really a linguist, grammarian, expert in all the like tools that you use in language, but may not make any sense at all. Have you not heard a very flowery speech that was completely senseless? We have had many of those in our life. We have had them. But so with all the uh, expertise in the grammar of language, and no background and no foundation in the grammar of thinking, we really, lose big time. Because what's more important is to train ourselves. Now we have to learn language first, because we even think in language. That's the problem. So, actually, the grammar of thoughts is more important, but cannot be studied first. Because unless you have language learned language, you cannot study thoughts. So grammar of thinking comes as soon as you are able to master language skills. You must get into logic. Yes.
I just want to add on that that is the purpose of these sessions that we have arranged, is to go over what those laws are and how those laws can be used to govern our thinking. So that's something that definitely, if when you guys join, when you guys see you guys there, we'll definitely go over all of those things.
Pakistani, and I said to them, I couldn't go with them, so I said to them, look, when you go, make sure you have a good question. I mean, you're going to see your manager. Go and have a good question. And this is a true story. And so they only got one question that they could ask. And I said, oh, for God's sake, please don't ask about the moon. Yeah, just for God's sake, do not ask about the moon. So I told them that, look, if you're going to go, don't ask about the moon. And then don't ask any of these other silly questions like, can we do Zanjir, or can I recite Ali wa Waliullah in Tashahhud? Just for God's sake, go and try and get something decent out of this. So this group goes, I thought, relatively educated, quite good, from the West, whatever. So they goes to, okay, would you like to ask Agha a question? A lady from our group put her hand up. She was first, put her hand up. No one else got a chance. Everyone else was sort of thinking. She shot her hand up. Said, okay, here's your question. You have one question to ask the marja, and you've spent hours going through a checkpoint to go and sit in front of him to ask him a question, to try and get an answer. She says, I would just like to ask you why there isn't any Western toilets in the haram, so many Western toilets in the haram. It is stopping people from the West coming. Could you please sort this issue out? That is our level. That's how far we go. You're sitting in front of the marja, and that's what you're asking. And this is the problem. When we don't broaden our minds, don't broaden our horizons, don't understand alternatives, this is where we end up. I'm really sorry for taking up so much of your time. If they've still got it up. If they've still got it up. They may have got rid of it.
Does any of the other panelists like to tackle the same question? That's okay.
Well, this is kind of towards Molana as well. But this is a this is a general question. During your speech, you talked about the 3 different tiers that a moment can reach, referring to the first tier being choosing your friends, choosing your place, etc., etc. The second tier being one that strives towards achieving these things, and then the third tier, which is a quote by Imam Ali that you talked about, which was, I sat at the gate of my heart and let only God in. That's a quote that I heard a long time ago, and multiple times, and I never heard it in a speech or anything. How does one take the steps to achieve that level? And because I know the imams, they didn't just sit and do speeches. They contributed to society and their communities and everything. So how does one do that while also partaking in life, for example?
Was that question understood by everybody? No, didn't. Oh, okay, didn't hear it. Who wants to start? I guess we can start on this side this time. Oh, and then move our way. Okay. Can you also
My apologies.
can you
Yeah,
also repeat the question?
the question was based on the lecture that I gave earlier today, where we spoke about the three stages or the three tiers within taqwa, God consciousness. And we said that the first stage was the abstention from haram and fulfilling one's wajibat, and within that, to change. If we have friend circles that pull us towards haram and that sort of stuff, and get rid of that. The second stage was then to start working on, as we find it in Dua Makarim al Akhlaq, on those akhlaqi moral things that exist within us, or the immoral traits, and then fostering the morality that exists within us. So that was it. And then the third stage was the highest point was, I stood by the door of my heart and only let God in. And how do we achieve that? It is a journey. And every stage of it becomes increasingly more difficult. I often say that, tazkiyat an-nafs, the purification of the soul, isn't easy. If anyone ever said to you that it's going to be really easy and you'll get over it and you'll reach these heights and you'll start levitating any second now, they lied to you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hadith of Mi'raj says to the Holy Prophet, when talking about the people of the Akhirah, says يموت الناس مرة ويموت أحدهم في كل يوم 70 مرة. He says that every mankind only dies once in their life. Yeah, most of mankind. The people of the Akhirah die every single day, 70 times a day, fighting against their nafs. It's very difficult. But it can be done in a very strategic form. And one of the ways that I always say that we can do it is we set ourselves a timetable for that week, for that month. That this week I want to achieve this goal, and this goal. And I start off really slow. So even if it's like adding mustahabbat, so salatul layl. Okay, for the first 2 weeks I can't pray all 11 raka'ah because it's too difficult for me. I'll only pray the 1 raka'ah of salatul vitr. And then I make sure I do that for 2 weeks, then I add the salatul shafa. And then I add like this. The same with my morality. And this is why contemplation is so essential on this path. Imam al-Hasan says, "Atafakkaru hayatu qalbi al-basir." That contemplation is the life of the hearts that can see, of the hearts that have that insight, that depth, that view. You have to think, you have to sit down, you have to contemplate, you have to go back within yourself and analyze your day. Why is it that I got angry? Why is it that I got annoyed? Why is it that I was getting tired when others were speaking, but now that I'm speaking, I don't want to get off the mic? Yeah? So it's the things like that that I need to analyze when I go home. Why is it that I spoke like that? Why is it that I extenuated my British accent even more? Is it because it makes me sound more intelligent? Why? And it's to that level where I sit and I meditate and I contemplate and I highlight the issues that exist within my soul at every stage. And as we progress and go from one stage to another, that contemplation gets more difficult and things like that. But obviously you've got me on Facebook, so drop it to me in a message and I'll send it back to you in that format. Yeah? Thank you. Sorry.
Please.
Assalamu alaikum. I kind of want to refer back to the question that the sister here had a little while ago in terms of wanting for us to focus on creating unity and correcting maybe our understanding or way of life and outreach and interfaith. I've heard quite many years we don't need to be doing outreach and interfaith. We need to correct and unify ourselves. But the reality is that for myself, I've been in Islam for over 30 years now, and we still haven't gotten it together. Is that why maybe in the Shia community there isn't much going on when it comes to reaching out to non-Muslims and like the Sunnis? And is that the way it should be? why is it, or is it justified for the argument of the Eastern or the people that are born and raised as Muslims that one should not focus our time or energy in reaching out to non-Muslims because we quite don't have it together ourselves? Is that really a valid point?
Okay. So I'm gonna start off, if that's okay. Um, no, I disagree with the notion presented, as in I think we need to be doing outreach work. We have traditionally, as Shias, over the whole world, I mean the spectrum of it, we really don't do very well at outreach work. I mean the Salafis are like Jehovah's. You know, they're at people's doors in England, and they're in the town centres, and they're out there promoting, and in whichever way, shape or form they do it. I mean, right now in my own home city of Peterborough, there is a Salafi organisation called the Children of Adam, and they have been, when England was flooded, they were in those regions that were flooded, and they were doing work amongst those people. They were helping the fire services, they were getting people out of their homes, they were delivering food packages, they were doing everything. Even every week they're feeding the homeless, they're doing all sorts of work like that. When it comes to sort of interfaith, generally interfaith events bore me, and I find them absolutely useless, because everyone's coming in and everyone's got their own opinion, and everyone wants to talk about their own opinion, and nothing really comes out of it. And I've always been an advocate of having an interfaith event, but where you're presenting the Shia way. So you call all different faiths, they come and they listen to what the Shias have to say on a particular topic. I attended an interfaith event at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland some months back now, and there was Jews there were Christians, different denominations, as Muslims, Sunnis as well, and they were talking about how it is that this group can go forward, what is it that they can do, and a number of different aspects came up. And what I realized at that point was the only way that these sort of outreach programs can work, and I think traditionally as Shias we've never had this mindset of we want to convert people. At the very least, because we've been so oppressed for so many years, it's the very least at least just be tolerant and don't kill us. Just be tolerant of us, understand where we're coming from. We don't want you to convert. And even Ahlul Bayt, they themselves say, take our teachings to the people. They themselves leave the rest to us. They themselves will come our way if they knew what we had to say. But we're hell bent on putting Gandhi's face on a thing to promote Imam Hussein, or Edward Gibbon on a water bottle to try and get people to believe in the Imam. I mean, that's a different topic for another day. But what came out of that discussion that we had in Edinburgh was that actually we could unify with other faiths on certain topics. So one of the ones I suggested there, and we started working on a paper, and that was an Abrahamic faith's sort of tackling environmental change. Pollution, litter, the amount, because the Christians have a really good program which is called eco-congregations. They're now working within the churches to make them more eco-friendly. So getting rid of all disposable plastics, having reusable, renewable cutlery that's there, trying to have more solar panels, all of that sort of stuff, offsetting their carbon footprint. It's very difficult here in the US because everyone drives, so your carbon footprint's huge. But in England, it's not so big, so you can walk to places, so you're offsetting. But that worked as a really good way, that we found a common topic and we brought people in, and then you can actually tell them that Islam does speak about global warming. There are ayat, there are hadith that speak about the world heating towards the end of its time. It speaks about the heating of the world. So all of these things, you can bring them in, but you have to be smart about it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran that call people to the way of your Lord bil hikmah, through wisdom. And good words. And if they argue with you, then argue with them in the best of ways. So hopefully that's answered it. I'm really sorry I talked too much.
You have been sitting quietly for so long.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Just to kind of go back to, I mean, what you just asked, is the reason why we're not outreaching to other communities is because of our own issues that we have within ourselves and the discourse that we have between one follower of one Maraja or follower of another Maraja or different, political issues or, difference of opinion on certain matters. Let me ask you this. What do you think? Is that the reason or no? Mashallah. Mhm. Right.
identified with the people that were oppressed. Our people are oppressed by our government as well. So, and I started to see them as human beings, and through our humanity, I was worried about them. I was concerned about them as they were concerned about me, and 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 if it hadn't been for that, they would have never tried to push me into studying Islam, and I never would have truly desired to do that. It was those relationships that we had that we built through just as human beings. So, as the Easterners, I feel like one of the flavors and the seasoning of the culture is that you'll smile and you'll be courteous, but you refrain. Maybe you're thinking we're not just, you do not talk, etc., etc. But we're human beings, and I'm thinking, myself, how can I have this wonderful well of the greatest gift that God has given humanity, and not just say, hey, here it is, and get to know one another. We don't have, and it's not a matter of converting. We don't convert people. That's something between the individual and God. And how dare you? How dare you is what I ask myself. You love Hussein. Hussein is not yours. Hussein is for humanity. The prophet was for the entire humanity. How dare you? How dare you? During now, alhamdulillah, my just started in English. Here we are today. But you have no idea the struggles that we've had where the haram, everything is in your language. You already know who he is. You already love him. Why do you not do what needs to be done so the entire world can love him? I cannot wrap my brain around that. No. So, please do not get offended. I'm not trying, my goal is not that. I'm just, as the more that I love and surrender, the more I don't understand. How can we not share it? How can
We have not been habituated, sister, we have not been habituated to converse with outsiders. We have not grown up like that. It's like paying a tip. A lot of people are trained. They think somebody who's providing a service deserves some sort of tip, but many people think this is where they should save money. They don't want to tip any. They think so they pay $50 for the lunch. The $5 is too much for them. So it's just like that, like most people are sure about what they believe in and would love to talk about it with anybody they could find. And we may be sure about what we believe in. We have not been habituated or brought up in a way that we are so passionate about talking with other people. Or it's even possible that we are not even sure about what we believe in. Even that is possible. Many of our people are not really sure about it. They have collected all these ideas, random ideas, that why Imam Hussain, and there was an Imam Hussain, there was a Karbala, and this thing happened. And because we've really not hit the books, they have not really opened anything. We don't really know. But we have been hearing these things again and again and again, so with not enough reasons to prove that this never happened, so we just kind of subscribe that yes, it did happen because everybody says it. And some parts of it really are interesting to talk about or listen to, so whatever. But by the way, I have a question. You said you were trying to convert Muslims to Christianity. Did you manage to actually convert somebody? In the process, you never.
I literally
Oh.
had a notepad. I was going to
Oh.
pros and contrasts and whatnot, and because I read the Quran, I had the Quran in the trunk of my car for almost 3 years. It meant nothing to me. So I could probably tell you everything that one should not do when it comes to interfaith, because that's kind of what I went through. But it had to. But when I was ready, and it's like they say, when the student is ready, then you're ready to learn. But I really love what Brother was sharing in terms of uniting with good activities that other people are doing, and that's to me one of the best ways in which we can just it's easy to be afraid of the unknown. So once we get to know one another, we all are parents and have the same fears and hopes for our children and ourselves. ourselves, and we need to unite in that as people, brothers and sisters in humanity, and not to assume that these people, I mean, even as converts, many of us, you know, many times people judge we're not really Muslims, or the guy just married him, or he's
So,
using him for her husband, all these little things. But when we get to know one another, then we really learn
right.
to love and admire.
So we're gonna take last comment from Sheikh Amin. Then there's just one question after he answers, and then we're gonna move up to closing. Okay.
I, I don't know if I have an answer, but first of all, I feel I'm sorry about your grandmother. I just like to share a little thing. I mean, you know, Jesus actually asked God once. He's like, "Is there a person that is better than I am?" And God actually replied, "Yes, there is." He was shocked. He's like, "How is it possible? I spoke in the cradle. I am, I came with a book. And is there something that I did wrong? I mean, and then God replied, no, but there's just a person who's better. He's like, can you tell me where that person is? So Allah, he says, okay, go to such and such place, there's this person stays over there. So he goes, I mean, this is a broken house right next to, the river. He just walks in. He sees this lady, she's lying there. She does not have eyes. She's completely paralyzed, can't walk. The only thing that she can do is she can talk and speak, exactly. And she's just, praising. And he realizes, you know what? He just walked into a house without permission. So he just goes back out. And he just says, in Arabic they say, Assalamu alaikum ya ummao, peace be on you, O my mother. And she responds back, Assalamu alaikum ya ruhullah. He's surprised. He's like, how did you know that it was me? He's like, the same God that told you to come find me told me that you were going to come see me. He asks her, how is it possible for you to be in this state and still thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? She's like, I was perfect, I had a life and everything. My question to you is, Urullah, that when he took all of this away from me, did he ever, for that single moment, was his focus and his attention towards me? And Hazrat Isa replies, yes. At that moment, for that, slight moment, his focus was on you when he took it all away, all the ni'mah that we have. He's like, I'm thanking for that moment. I'm thanking for that moment that he considered me worthy enough to take all this away from me. Do I have an answer to, what you just said? Absolutely not. I do not have an answer. And again, I do not have an answer. I guess the problem it all comes down to is our own, fears and the fact that we do not believe in what we practice. When I grew up, when I went to university, I had questions myself. And I still remember in a world literature class where a semi-devout pastor was teaching this class that raised questions. And I decided to ask those questions. And I did not receive the answers that I was looking for. I looked into Buddhism, I looked into Christianity, I looked into Judaism, I looked into any mainstream religion, you name it. I went and I looked for 3 years. And the thing that helped me, to be honest, it was not that something that I was raised with, all the beliefs. But like you said, to me, the only person that helped me was Imam Hussein. Because of the personality that he had. The thing is, we are afraid. We are afraid of, okay, what if I bring this up in front of someone? I do not believe in it. I myself, I say, okay, this is what happened. I say, we cry over him. We're not actually crying over him. I mean, Sayyidah Zainab says, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. I did not see anything besides the beauty of Allah. And we're crying I'm not saying that the oppression, that was done to them, I mean, it was, it's heartbreaking. But do we actually see the beauty of Allah in it? We don't. I mean, I'm the one to blame. I'm the one to blame.
Have one last question, and after that we'll close.
Assalamu alaikum. My question is with Brother Amin. Brother, you just mentioned that there's the political, you mentioned a political difference that exists among Shias and the difference of opinions that Marjas have in their fiqh. Could you please shed some light on that as to how that directly affects outreach in North America or in Houston? And if we were to presume that those differences do not have an effect on outreach, what are three practical steps that we can take towards uplifting our outreach programs in Houston? Since we're in Houston, let's focus on Houston. How do you think we should do that? Practical steps.
I mean, we can all have our difference of opinion. Some like chicken, some like beef, and some are completely vegetarian. And now we have a different vegan, craze going on, fad that people want to follow. Apparently, that's the new lifestyle. And we all, I mean, but at the end of the day, we're all gonna eat food. We need food to survive. That's just how religion is. The basic pillars are there for us. The interesting thing that I find is that we talk about all these issues, but I've never had a single person, and this is not a logical fallacy that I'm talking about. I have not yet to see a single person actually come up to me and say, hey, brother, it's Zohar time. Let's just leave this argument, let's go pray. We're going to talk about every single thing from the color of this box to, who should win the playoffs. We're going to debate about all these things, but the core issue, the things that actually matter, are the ones we just don't talk about. We just tend to, just brush them aside because we do not believe in that. As you talk about practical steps, interestingly, I read a hadith. It was from Ayatollah Mazahiri. He quoted, it's in Qafi, volume 2, I believe. He says, Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, he narrates that a person who actually, backbites and gossips about a mu'min, and his purpose is to actually, basically spread lies and put that person down, cause rumor, become a rumor mill. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes that person out of his wilaya and puts it in the wilaya of shaitan. And even shaitan does not accept that person in his wilaya. We need to have husn zan. The practical steps, let's have husn zan. Husn zan for somebody. I see a brother committing something wrong. Let's try to hide. Let's not just go about and, hey, WhatsApp right there, Facebook clip, Snapchat, Instagram. We're that's what I'm saying. It's an outreach program. That's what I'm saying. This is the first step. This is the most important step, actually. This is what we fail to, actually see. This is actually what we fail to see. We do not have husn zan. This is a disease of our soul. When we have not even resolved that, I mean, we can have everything. When the disease of the soul is there, how can you actually help somebody else? When you yourself are not in the proper direction. I mean, that's...
Very good, well said. You wanted to add something? Interfaith, the way it is done, I was talking about that incident in Dallas. So these leaders of faith should be discussing among themselves, finding some common ground first of all. Starts usually from defining something, agreeing on a definition, whatever that is. For example, the issue of intellect. Okay, you are a Christian, you are Jewish, I'm Muslim, he is forever. But we do have a mind, and there's something we can agree on because we are human beings. What are those things we agree on? We have to find something common between the two. It may not be something religious, being something human, something very human that we agree on. And the more we explore that, the more you will see that it works the same way in my brain as it does in her brain or his brain. The more we appreciate it, we will see that, the functioning of that is the same in both organisms. And the dynamics of that, the rules that operate, and all of that, and the more you go into that field, you will see that there's more agreement and respect, and that respect can lead to agreement in other areas of life. For example, religion may be one of those areas, and role in the society, what is a good citizen, I don't know, globally speaking, all this stuff we hear, maybe, we'll find some, or another way of interfaith is just, instead of having these experts talking about their faiths or tackling a question on interfaith, right? I don't agree with that. The way it should work on a very ground level, grassroots level, is for people to actually interact. Create an environment where kids present their ideas, some projects, and Christians and Jews come, families, and question our children about what is that you present. For example, the science projects we do, the teachers go in there, check, and walk away. This is a perfect time for interfaith. We should have had all the Christian community, the Jewish community attend this event where these kids have worked 3 months on these projects. They can talk about it. It doesn't have to be something religious. This is the interfaith we are missing. When families, and it doesn't have to be in a mosque, could be anywhere, some community center or recreation center, whatever that place is, where people come and families interact. The fact that you organize that event and you are supervising it is enough. You don't have to micromanage anything. Just the fact that you created an environment where people come and feel comfortable with each other, talking to each other, appreciate the body language and the energy of this 10-year-old who has worked on some project about the community or Islam or science or whatever, and they can see that just as human as me, this love and affection that creates out of this without any proper, it's very spontaneous. It goes a long way in our relations with other communities. But when we talk about interfaith, we think that 5 experts should sit on a panel and talk for 5 hours. It doesn't solve any problem. Often creates more hostility because you see so divergent ideas and you have no way to reconcile them.
Just one or two ideas that I've been relatively successful in the UK. The first step is open up your masajid and your Hussainiyat. Let people come in. Yeah.
Harvey here, we were not only not prepared, we were not even willing to prepare ourselves.
Times of crisis, even throughout, we have the mosque open day, the masajid open days. So we need to have that courage to be able to let people come in and have a look. That, look, we're not funded by Iran, or we're not getting some dubious funds from somewhere. Come and have a look. Look at what we're doing. Don't be afraid. And that's, so have that. The big iftar is something that happens every year. So go with your work colleagues. Say to them, look, why don't you fast, do the money for a charity of your own cause, then come to my mosque afterwards and open your fast with us. Listen to the speech, listen, see what we do, open your fast with us, and it's as simple as that. That has a huge impact. Third thing that is needed is courage when we do these things. Just be open about it and let people. I was catching a flight from last year from Houston to Maryland, and I sort of settled in my seat, thought I'm going to go and relax this flight, and this guy came and sat next to me, and just as the plane took off, he started talking to me. And I hadn't slept the night before either. And he was just, so he goes, where are you going? And I was like, well, I'm going to Maryland. And he goes, oh, so what you here doing? And I was like, just some speeches and stuff. He was like, oh, okay. He goes, oh, basically, we're going for a prayer meet in Maryland. And they'd booked out half the plane. And I was smack bang in the middle of them. And so he was like, we're going for a prayer meet. And so he goes, so I guess you're a Muslim? And I was like, yes, I am. And he said, "Oh, you know what? I studied Islam, and really, it just didn't appeal to me. There's just so much anger there." And I was like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, I went to Qatar to study." It's like probably not the right place. You went to the wrong place to learn it. But anyway, and so he was talking like God is like really angry to me. You're Islamic. And I was like, no, no, no. So I was giving him alternatives, and he was just blanking it out and just ignoring it totally. And then anyway, the conclusion of it was he goes, "Look, we're going to a prayer meet. Do you want me to pray for you for something? Anything? Please tell me something. I'll pray for you." And I was like, drew a blank. I was like, safe travels. I've got a few more travels. Just pray for my safety in my travels. He goes, "Okay." He goes, "You know what? Let me pray for you right now." He takes his hat off and he's like, top of his voice, "Dear God." I was looking around this plane, like, sinking into my seat. "This is Nabil. Keep him safe. Enlighten his heart with the," sorry about my American accent, with the love of Jesus as you have enlightened my heart." And I was like, cheeky, don't, like, I would like to counter that. But so he went on. But the point is that they were very, like, he was unafraid, unashamedly telling me about his beliefs. And I very unashamedly countered some of the stuff that he was saying, even though he chose not to listen to it. But it was the fact that I sat there and I went, "No, you know what? No, it's fine." So that's, and you listen, you have that dialogue. I know a friend of mine moved into a new area and he had Christian neighbors. And because he never really interacted with anyone non-Muslim before. And the little old lady that lived next door came knocking at the door and said, "Oh, I baked you a cake." And they went, "Yeah, if you could just wait at the end of the drive, we'll come down and talk to you." And so then they walk to the end, and she's standing at the end of the drive, and they walk down, and they're like, "Yeah, sorry, you know what it is, we're Muslims, and you're najis, and that cake, we can't eat it, and so if you give it to us, we're just going to throw it away. So, I mean, thanks, but no thanks." And you think, what, that is the mindset. So we need to be open, we need to be loving about it. Open the masajid, open the Husainiyat, let people come in and have a look, let people interact with each other. And that's the way to do it. Yes.
That was a beautiful answer. And you're right, we should open our Husainiyas to the public. I didn't understand the part in which you mentioned Iranian funded. Where did that come from?
Okay, so what we have. Yes, I know. But I'm from England and there's also masajid there. So the thing is that there is a mindset that says anything that is inherently Shia, has been funded in some way, shape or form with khums, which comes from Iran. Yeah? So that's what I'm saying. And people are afraid of these questions being asked. In fact, when I got my US visa, I should have got it in 2 days. But the fact was, they were like, so this Al Ghadir Foundation you're going to, where do they get their funding from? And I was like, oh, like donors, I guess. Does their funding come from Iran? And I was like, don't think so. They're all from Texas. And they were like, okay, well, we're happy with your part, but we're going to investigate that organization before we give you your visa. And they longed out my visa process. It should have taken 3 days. It took 6 days. So the fact is, that is a very real reality that we face. And so when we wise up to it and we know, what we're doing, it shouldn't be anything that we're worried about.
So with that said, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Go back to, the question that was actually originally asked, the 3 practical points. That was the original questions, right? So the point that, the number 1 point that I said, have husn zan, just try to find good in other people. Even if you see somebody doing a sin, try to, hide this sin. Don't go about telling other people about it. That's number 1. As, Brother Nabil also say, tolerance and forbearance, We talk about Imam Hussein, we talk about, for us, basically, all Aima are same. But we tend to forget other things. One of the main things, the stories that help me, and I keep reminding myself every single time, something goes wrong, I say, okay, the story of the Prophet and the old lady, we've all heard it. I'm guessing every single person has heard it many times. She used to throw trash. If I had my own brother spit on me, I'll be like, What's wrong with you? I mean, like they say, Chibir Asad bis, somebody else. Like, forget even, somebody, a kafir, I mean, throwing a trash on you. And I say I'm a follower of the Prophet. No, I'm not. I like the idea of Islam. It's the same thing with the metaphor that's being used. Honey, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. That's what we are. I mean, we talk about all these things, but when it comes to practicality, we tend to be like, hey, yeah, it's good, but this is what he was a prophet or he was an imam. No, he had a life, and those were the examples. Just having forbearance and tolerance. And the third thing, when you talk to people, don't talk to them like you want to convert them. Please don't do that. Anybody who does that, I'm sorry, you just shut it. You just put a barrier. And if you don't know something, just say, hey, I don't know. We're not talking, forget, Shiism, forget Christianity. We're in a world that, if you actually go out and talk to people, we actually have issues with atheism right now. Atheism has become a religion. We are actually stuck with, does God exist or not? That's what we have come down to. And this is what it is. Just talk to people. Just be friendly with people. And this.
Sorry. The difference between beliefs and ethics and how it is internalized, in how you absorb it, how a person learns beliefs as compared to ethics. Ethics relates to interfaith, for example, how you interact with non-Muslims. Beliefs is about how you perceive them, what you think of them. Beliefs are taught like you teach something, like you teach a book. That's how beliefs are taught, through reasoning, arguments, and all of that, right? Ethics are not taught like this. Akhlaq, ethics is about training, habituating somebody. If you want your next generation to interact with the person on the street or the church or the whatever, a certain way, you have to start habituating them now, training our community, our new generation who already are in touch with outside, but just grooming them, helping them through, the rational tools, through other ways, ethical tools. Actually develop a program of what sort of behaviors, attitudes, and actions are to be done, and in what way, these have to be really provided as training courses, practical training courses, not as the workshop we are having now. Rather, as like in Germany, I think they actually take the children out, teach them how to cross the road, and they do it again and again. Do we teach our children, take them outside to actually do something? No, we keep talking, and they obviously cannot listen. So.
With this, I'm sorry, there was the last question and it already turned into more than just like one question. So anyway, so we're going to close off, okay? Highly recommend everybody to sign up. Any other questions you guys have, those can be addressed in the upcoming sessions that we'll have starting in July, okay? With that, and we do have Austin Shawala and Nutella Parathas outside. If you guys don't have them, go get outside and get them. Okay, with that, please with loud salawat, let's close up, okay?
Well, I've also been told that there's lots of chai. You guys, before leaving, they didn't want to bring it all the way in here. It's a little difficult to pack. They didn't know how many chais we need. So get your cup before you leave. It's part of the tabarruk. They won't charge you for the chai. So just in case you're scared of that. You just still have to line up out there. Thank you so much for the panel. We have a few gifts for our panel. These are just clocks with the 12 name of the imams written on them. So every time you look at the time, you get a little sawab. I was only going to give 3 out, but I think Harun deserves one too. He's been doing a lot of running around today. Yes. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Hello, hello, hello. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Just a small announcement. Tomorrow at 6 p.m. sharp, IC Main Prayer Hall, we have a seminar which is called Why Raise a Voice for a Free Palestine. We have Sheikh Osama Abdul Ghani as one of the seminar